So I was thinking about how in the emotional health realm right now, there's so many videos about this people group is emotionally toxic. These people are toxic. This is how you need to kick them out of your life. And I'm actually all for boundaries. I think boundaries are so healthy.
I've needed to implement them.
Yeah. But when we have to label, when we put ourselves in a superiority mindset, like, I'm so much healthier than you. You're toxic. You're bad. And that's the thing that one of the ways I can see the parallels between the church and emotional health is we can separate people into good and bad categories.
Yeah.
In you call it the faith institution. Sometimes I use the word the church because I think people know what that means.
Yeah. I use faith institution also to embrace all religious practices as well. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the idea would be like in the faith institution, you're like, there's people who are good and there's people who are bad. And so you want to be a part of the good group. Who doesn't want to belong to the good group? And you want to be a part of a majority, and you don't want to be told that you're being bad. And emotional health does the same thing of like, you're toxic, you're unhealthy, you're unsafe. I remember, and it's not that people have bad intentions to do this. It's most of the time whenever we learn a new emotional health concept, it feels really liberating in the beginning and really validating. And then it's what do we do with that? Then we can either wield it as a weapon to protect ourselves, or we can use it to grow our emotional distress tolerance, to grow our resilience, to grow our ability to face ourselves and look inward and heal. And so I'm thinking about the idea of when in our group, safe and unsafe started getting thrown around as words. And I've seen this in culture as well. When you start learning about like what safe behavior is and what unsafe, now you start labeling, that's just not a safe person.
Yes.
And now what you're doing is you're taking all the nuance out. You're taking you're becoming very black and white in your thinking, where you're looking at them as a whole, like they don't have parts to them and different ways that they behave. And now you're making a judgment on their identity and defining who they are by an experience that you had. And I know that I have done unsafe behavior. And this is where it's similar to religion, right? Like the things that you judge in others, you will be judged for in your own self. And so if I judge anytime I do unsafe behavior, because I just qualify unsafe behavior as when you're in self-protection. Most of the ways we try to self-protect isn't necessarily the safest for the people around us.
Yeah.
And so I've done unsafe behavior. If that means I'm an unsafe person, then now my whole identity is condemned. Every part of me is bad. And I've seen people do that. They'll throw people entirely out because of an experience that they've had or experiences that they've had with somebody. And it feels safer to be able to label someone else and be like, oh, you are just unsafe. You're toxic. You're a narcissist. You're all of those things we like to. And I know that there are truly narcissists out there, but one of the ways that we use emotional health language is to just diagnose people instantly so that we can push them away. Instead of being like, I'm allowed to have boundaries with you regardless of if you're toxic or not.
Right.
I'm actually allowed to have boundaries. I don't have to prove that you're toxic for me to be allowed to be like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to participate.
Yeah, I don't have capacity for this. Plain and simple. I don't have to label you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you're talking about labels, because I know that from the religious institution I grew up in, one of the labels that got thrown around was Jezebel. Right? So the idea was there was a story.
Are you being a Jezebel?
Jezebel was dominated. She was the queen that dominated this king. And
she tried to kill a prophet.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically it was like she was manipulative, coercive. He submitted to her and did whatever it is that she wanted. And there's a whole lot into that. But so the idea is that label within the institution would go, bam, oh, that's just a Jezebel over there. She's just there to cause problems and control and manipulate and all of this stuff, right? And that created so much destruction for so many women's hearts that we're throwing a label on like that. And that's just one of many
totally.
examples of these labels over here. And so you have what's evolved in the emotional health community, these labels you're talking about, they're just a toxic person, they're an unsafe person. And I'm like, but aren't we the community of compassion? Aren't we the community of understanding? Aren't we the community of being messy? Like that's in both communities, it's supposed to be like, we're acknowledging we're all fucked up and we need saving.
Yeah, 100%. Well, they did this study. This is famous, but I didn't actually know that they did a study about it, but where they had people write out why their friend was dating somebody and why they were dating somebody. So they did this study and I'm so sorry, my brain just stopped in the middle of that sentence. So when they had the people write out, what a moment for my mind.
Why?
I'm starting this over. So they did a study, and in the study, they asked people to write out why they were dating their romantic partner. And then they had them pick a friend who was dating someone and say, why is their friend choosing that romantic partner? And what they found across the board is that when people wrote why they were choosing their partner, it would be things like context, like I met them at this place, they were really loving, or they're really supportive, or they wrote context for their internal story together. And when they wrote about their friend and why they chose them, it'd be like, their romantic partner is pretty and charismatic, and it was just external things.
Right.
And so what they found from that is something that is true, is that when we think about our own internal worlds, we use context. We see our story within the context of what is happening. So when I look at me when I'm having a bad day, and maybe I'm grumpy to the cashier, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't want to be grumpy to that cashier, but I'm feeling so sick today, and I'm so at my limit, and I got in here and then I forgot my bank cards, and so now I don't know what to do. Like, oh, all of that was context for why there was a little bit of grumpiness. But when we see someone else be grumpy, we don't assume that there's a context for why they're grumpy. We don't assume that there's a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. We just judge, and we're easy to be like, man, they just must not care about people. They must be, it's very easy to then label someone else. We give ourselves more context and we label others more fast.
Right. So we dehumanize them by not acknowledging that there's a story. Like we're willing to acknowledge our story at some level, but we're not willing to engage their story and say, what is their story? What is their story for today? What is their story in this season of life that I'm not aware of?